Hi everybody, it's Mr. Shikowski. I'm putting together a quick video here that I hope will do the bulk of the explanation and to show you a few little pieces here that have been put together for what will be our last activity of this unit, Unit 2. And it involves a video called Battle for the Trees and a look at a contentious, debatable resource issue, which in this case is how Canada is using its forest resources, particularly the type of forest that's just along the very coastline of Canada. And so, much of Canada is covered by a huge boreal forest. What we are going to be focusing on is what is also known as the old growth rainforests of British Columbia. So I just wanted to point that out as part of this before we get going here. We are going to focus on the rainforests along the coast of British Columbia. We've already visited them a little bit by going to the video on the Queen Charlotte Islands, the Haida Gwaii video that should now be completed by the time you get to this set of instructions. The actual resources should all be inside our Unit 2 folder down near the bottom, okay? And what I've done is I've created 3 new pieces here right underneath a file called Battle for the Trees, and these are the only 3 pieces that we are needing to use to complete this activity. So you don't have to go inside this folder at all. There's a lot of other things in there that we would have been using if we'd been in class live, but it's been streamlined and simplified. So these are the 3 pieces. One of them is a PowerPoint called Battle for the Trees Distance Learning PowerPoint Instructions. And then the other one is Battle for the Trees Distance Learning Activity Booklet. And these 2 things are meant to go together, really. And then the last thing is a film notes guide that normally we would have had you answering while we were watching the video. What I've done is just straight up posted an answer key to the film notes guide for this video as a way for you to have watched the video and understand what some of the most important content and arguments and pieces are from that video. So all I'm asking you to do with this 3rd file is just simply to review it. Just read it over once, maybe twice, and you'll get a taste of what the biggest concepts and most important terms and ideas are in the video. What you're doing with these 2 pieces, we should talk just a little bit more about. And so, first of all, the Word document, okay, itself has, I think, 3 or 4 pages in total, okay, and it's designed for you to type in a few things along the way, much like we've been doing in other activities in the last few weeks. So you're going to learn that there are these different groups that are represented in this battle for the trees, and we are calling them interest groups, okay, and they're groups of like-minded people that have similar points of view about the issue of forestry in Canada in this case, and how we should be logging in one particular part of Canada, which is called Clayoquot Sound, okay? And some of this information is in that PowerPoint, so you can follow the PowerPoint and learn a little bit more about it. But along the way, what we're going to be asking you to do as you watch this video and you listen to different loggers and conservationists, which are like environmentalists, and the Cayucot people are featured, which is the First Nations group that lives in the area that is featured in this video. And then there's foresters and scientists that are trying to study what's going on to the forest as we are clear-cutting it versus selective logging it. And then there's also a group, 2 groups that we've kind of mushed together, government and industry personnel or representatives. Often these 2 groups work together. The industry says to the government, look, let me log this part of the forest and I will create so many jobs and give you so much tax revenue. And the government often will say, okay, but we need to follow certain rules. You can only cut here, but not here. And the 2 of them often are working together. And so they've been put together here as a 5th group or with a similar point of view, and that is to how can we make money from this resource. The industry wants it for its shareholders and its pocketbook, and the government wants a share of that for taxes that they can then use to pay for all sorts of other government services in Canada. So as you're watching this video, okay, you've been given some space here to record 2 major arguments that would sort of apply to each group. So who are they? You can describe who they are after watching the PowerPoint. There's like a one-liner sort of explanation of who each of these groups are and what they kind of think and represent. But as you're watching the video, we're going to ask you to record at least 2 major arguments that sort of apply to each of these groups. So who are the loggers? What are their main arguments in this group around how we should be treating forests and what they think of other groups, etc. Who are the conservationists? What do they believe? Who are the Cayuga? What do they believe? Foresters and scientists. What are their arguments? What are the our government and industry's arguments? So those first 2 pages, there's not a lot that you have to write on them, but there is a particular space been set aside for you to record major arguments from each of the 5 main points of view. And what you see in addition to that are some links that have been created that if you wish to, you can go sort of deeper online and do a bit more research about each of these 5 groups that's a bit more updated from the video. Okay? So those links are there for you to explore if you have time and you want to delve deeper into some of those groups and what they believe. The rest of the viewing response booklet is these next 2 pages. And what we're asking you to do, here's a list of 8 values, ecosystem-based values, things that that if a certain group would find very important, that would align with their point of view and their values. So if you were the industry and government, for example, which of these 8 values do you think they would put as their most important value, the thing they would value the most out of all of these different points of view or aspects of how to treat the forest? And so your job is to pick from these 8 and decide, okay, industry and government, for example, they may be really sort of focused on economic values. And the other 4 groups, you would have to choose from these other ones and decide which one most is best related to that group. And you've got some choices to make because there's 8 different values here, but only 5 groups, and there's only 1 per group that you should be putting. And then again, from the movie, you should be able to justify why you feel the industry and government is mostly focused on economic values. And you'd have to provide a detail or a quote or a statistic from the video that would support your choice. So you're going to write a little bit in these boxes to help explain your choice. And then the last 2 questions that we're asking you to think about and answer either mostly after you're finished watching the video are these, okay? If you had to take sides in this debate, which interest group would you be the most comfortable supporting, you personally, okay? What interest group were you most naturally opposed to? So in other words, sort of, who do you align yourself with? Which interest group would you most likely join, and which one would you most likely argue against the most? And you'd have to explain. So this is sort of a personal reflection question, asking you to apply your own feelings and thoughts to one of the or some of the groups that you saw illustrated in the movie. And then question 3 is the most important one, and the one I will be putting the most marks onto when I look at this. And as for an assessment purposes, I would like you at the end of this video then to be able to explain to me what you think we should do differently as a society and how we should treat our forests so that we can maintain a sustainable economy, a sustainable environment, and a healthy society. So what changes need to be made to current logging practices, the practices you're going to see demonstrated in that video? What changes should we make? What things should we keep? What things that are being done that should be done or have to be done? And I want you to sort of, in point form notes, explain how you would build a sustainable logging industry after hearing all the arguments from all the different groups in this video. You are now the judge. You create a set of guidelines or characteristics or list some changes that would need to be implemented to make our logging industry more sustainable. Okay, so this document, this single Word document, has several parts to it. You're being asked to fill it out both while you're watching the film and afterwards as a set of reflections and thoughtfulness. Evidence of thoughtfulness will be one of the major pieces for the assessment, details, things like that. So this will be something you need to save. You need to download and save and then send me when you're finished it, as an attachment to an email. Okay, so we're going to close that, go back to the PowerPoint. It's got just some slides to help set the scene about where we're going to be focusing here. We're going to Clayoquot Sound, which is on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, and there's a close-up of it there. And there's a few video links that are that you're asked to kind of watch quickly just to get a sense of what's going on and what's happened historically and what's happening more recently than even our video. So what is an interest group is described here, and then the 5 main interest groups that this video focuses on are described briefly there. And so this who are we here, you could take this language and use it in that Word document that we were just going through. And then your job then goes to, okay, watch the video and record some of the best arguments, statistics, or points that the movie makes that would explain how the industry and government thinks and what their main arguments would be. Okay, and then the final instructions sort of are here, what I've just said. You're going to watch the video, you're going to use the link that's provided on this final slide, and that link takes you to the National Film Board, and you can watch the video in pieces or all together. You can pause it, go back, review, rewatch things as needed. But the essence of this assignment is for you to finish that Word document and send it to me for assessment. And by finish, I mean you're answering the questions in point form with as much detail as you can. But this is not a big, long, multi-page kind of assignment. This is meant to be in point form notes, showing me that you have developed an appreciation for the different viewpoints that exist around natural resources and the different arguments that can be used to support those viewpoints. And in this case, we're using the forests as our case study. Okay, so I hope that this makes sense. We're just over 10 minutes now in terms of video length, and so I'm going to shut this down and remind you that these 3 files, the third one I didn't show you, we can click on it right now. It is basically, like I said, an answer key to a set of video notes that were made back a while ago when if we'd had more time, I might have asked you to fill out these notes yourself. But in this case, I just want you to review them. Just read them over after watching the video, and they should make some sense. And you get a sort of a sense of what are the big concepts and terminology that came out of this video separately from these other activities we're asking you to do. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. We'll close down the video now with the instructions you've been given, and you can look for this to arrive in your mailbox or be posted shortly. Take care, everybody.